Kind of popular and very common trout nymph fly today. This is called the WD-40. Things are cooling off here, and some of the tailwaters around here tend to be kind of the focus. And I'm going to do a number of videos on various nymph patterns for colder season trout, let's put it that way. WD-40 is a nice one because it's just such a quick and easy fly to tie. There's only 3 materials in the whole thing, and it can be tied so quick, and you can tie up a bunch of different colors and sizes. This is a size 16, but often this is tied in 18s and 20s, and it's such a simple pattern it's not hard to do on those much smaller hooks. So that's the WD-40. I'll get started tying. Start the WD-40 with my hook and the vise. This is a Mustad C49S in a size 16. It's just a little curved caddis hook. I think the Tiemco is a 2487. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I think is kind of the equivalent in the Tiemco. You could use a regular nymph hook for this if you wanted to, but a lot of people like to tie these on curved caddis hooks. Attach my thread. For thread on this one, I'm using a Danville 70 Denier in an olive color. Now, the nice thing about the WD-40, there are some traditional ways that this is tied in terms of how the original was tied and in terms of the color materials and everything. But if you look around, there's all kinds of variants out there. So this one would be considered a variant, I think, because it's the same materials, a little bit different color, everything. But that's the nice thing about this is you can do all kinds of things with this fly. It's so basic and simple. I'm going to attach my thread maybe a half an eye length or so behind the eye of the hook. I'm going to run my thread down to just at the end of the shank where it starts to curve here. Because then I'm going to tie in what's going to end up being our tailing material as well as our thorax. I'm using some natural mallard flank for this. You can use all kinds of different colors if you want. I've often used the mallard flank dyed in a wood duck, but this is just going to be a natural mallard flank. This is a nice feather because the tips of these, if you look out here, the tips of these get kind of ragged on the ends, and sometimes you have to pop those off to get them nice and kind of looking a little bit fuller. But this particular feather right here, I don't have to. So probably going to cut maybe, I don't know, 15, 18 barbs out of here. Depends on the size hook. This is maybe the gap of the hook a little bit more. I'm going to kind of roll that together, getting that all into a nice clump. What I want to do is tie this in. This is eventually, thread's going to go over the bend of the hook, deep down into the bend here. So I want a little bit of a tail sticking out down there. So, but it's easier to get this material tied in now on the top of the hook shank when you're up in this area than it is to get your thread all the way down that curve and try to tie this in. See, I can start it higher up and just wrap down. I'm going to get down into the curve there, like that. And then I'm going to bring my thread back up. Now, you don't have to, but I like to do pretty much touching turns here just to keep it nice and smooth. I'm going to come up not quite to the eye of the hook. I may be about 1.5 times the eye of the hook width-wise away from the eye. And then as you can see, I have the tips of those mallard flanks are nice and full. and just sticking right out the back there. So I'm going to come back down. This I do want to do in touching turns because I'm going to add a little bit of bulk here. I'm going to not quite come all the way down, and then I'm going to come back up. Still coming about where I stopped. Come back down. This just adds a little bit of taper to the abdomen portion here. And then I'm going to stop. This is going to be the back of the thorax. I'm going to take the rest of that mallard flank and fold it back. Kind of folding that down. I like to come down and put in a little bit of a thread dam in front of that so there's not so much of a ledge, because I'm going to put some dubbing on here. Our thorax is basically dubbing. Now, a lot of people will use a natural dubbing like beaver or muskrat for this, a gray dubbing. I like to use a little bit of life cycle. It has some natural materials and some synthetics in it. I think it's some rabbit in there with maybe a little bit of antron or nylon. I think it's antron because it's nice and sparkly. But I think that just adds a little bit more to it. And all you're going to go ahead and just get a 2-inch maybe dubbing noodle on here. We're going to wrap that in, and we're just going to kind of make it a little bit pronounced. It doesn't have to be hugely pronounced. Keep in mind a synthetic like this is probably going to have a little bit more shaggy material as opposed to some naturals like a rabbit or a muskrat would probably be a little bit smoother if you were using the softer underfur. That's it. Kind of think about what I'm talking and tying at the same time. Notice I'm not going right up to behind the eye of the hook. I want to stay a little bit further back because we're going to have to fold over that mallard for our wing case, which I'm going to do right now, and I have to leave some room for that. Take that mallard and let that kind of flatten out. And I'm pulling down and back on this so that it not only pulls the mallard right down to the hook shank, but it kind of pulls it back against that dubbing so that I'm not right 100% up behind the eye of the hook. The reason for that is I have to trim away this mallard flank now, and I've got to have just a little bit of room for the head of the fly without, if I trim that and I'm too close to the eye, I end up with a bunch of stubby little mallard flank butt ends sticking out there. This way, I can get all of that covered up with the head here. I think I got a little bit of either dubbing or mallard flank sticking out here. Keep in mind, this is a nymph. It is going to get beaten up. It is going to get looking a little more ragged. And in some ways, I think that's what you're looking for. Now I'm getting too many thread wraps on there, trying to cover up that one little spot. There we go. So a little whip finish on our WD-40 and some head cement here, and we're done. So as I said, you can vary this up in all kinds of different ways. Black thread, gray dubbed thorax up here. Green, I've seen a number of patterns with green, and then there's also different versions of this like the WD+, WD-40 Plus. And some other stuff. I've seen a number of videos where some people will actually put a rib on the abdomen portion. So take a look. If it's a pattern you're interested, look around, find a variant that you like or the original, but it is just a very, very quick little nymph fly. And this time of year, as things are getting colder and tailwaters seem to be kind of the focus, this is a pretty good fly for it. So that's the WD-40. Thanks for watching today. Thank you for joining me at the Vise today. I hope you learned a new pattern, at least a tip or trick here and there. If you'd like to help Dress Irons, you can like, comment, share, subscribe, all those wonderful things for the video. You can also head out to dressedirons.com where you can buy flies, tools, stickers, and merch, or you can join a growing community over on Locals at the Dressed Irons Fly Tying Guild. You can also donate to Dressed Irons if you want through the link at the bottom of the description. I thank everybody for their ongoing support, as it really does help the creation of these videos. And what's important is to remember, only fly tying. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.